In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this plate using parametric equations. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to set up my nominal dimension. So I'm going to go up here to modify. I'm going to scroll down to change parameters. I'm going to select user parameter and I'm going to hit this little plus sign. And I'm going to give it a name. The first one I'm just going to call H. My expression is actually going to be the dimension I want to put in. In this case, I'm going to start off with 3. And for comments, this is going to be my height. So I'm actually going to put that in there. Now that we have all that set up, we're going to hit OK. I'm going to look at my little picture here. And the first thing says my overall plate width. It's 5/3 ratio of the overall plate width to the plate height. So let's put our little equation in. So we're going to go 5/3 times. And what is my plate height? Well, my plate height, I'm going to call H. So I'm going to put that right over here because that's what I originally called it. So we're going to set that as my plate height. I'm going to go back to my Fusion. We're going to start a new sketch, pick my work plane, and I'm going to create a rectangle. So the first dimension I'm going to put in is going to be my height. And I call that H. So I'm just going to type in H. Hit enter. Next, I'm going to put in my width. So I'm going to come up here. We'll put my width in. And we're going to type in 5/3 times H. And we'll enter. We'll zoom out a little bit. And we'll hit finish sketch. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to modify and go down to change parameters. I'm going to go to my model parameters. I'm going to open up everything here. And you can see that first dimension I put in, H, is called D2. The second one I put in, which is my width, is now called D3. So I'm going to go back to my little diagram here. And I'm going to say my first one is D2. We're going to change it to D2. And my plate width is going to be D3. All right. So let's go down and see we have to put depth in, and it's 20 times smaller than my overall width. Well, my width is D3. So I'm going to type in D3 divided by 20. And my taper angle, I'm just going to leave that as is. I'm just going to put a little slash in there. So I'm going to go back to Fusion. I'm going to go to Extrude. I'm going to go to my isometric view. And for my distance, I'm going to put that equation in. D3 divided by 20. And we'll hit OK. Next, I'm going to go back to my modify, down to my change parameters. And I'm going to see that my extrusion is right here. We're going to open that up. And my extrusion is now D4, and that taper is going to be D5. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chance of putting some, or take the time to put some comments in here. So that first dimension I put in was my height. The next one was my width. So I'm going to type that in there. The next one was my extrusion. And the next one is just the taper. So I'm going to go back to my chart. And now I know this is going to be D4. And I know this is now going to be D5. Okay. I'm going to come back and get these values in a little bit later. We'll get them all at once. Next thing, I'm going to do my slot width. My slot width is 1/2 the overall plate height. Well, my plate height is either H or D2. So if it's 1/2, I can type in D2 divided by 2. Okay. I can come down to the next one, my slot A location. Okay, so we'll come up here, and that's going left to right, is 4/5 of my plate width. So we're going to do 4/5 times. Well, if I look over here, my plate width is D3, so I'm going to type in D3. Come down to this next one. My slot depth location is 1/3 the overall plate height. So my plate height, that's D2. I'm going to type in D2, and it's 1/3, so we're just going to divide by 3. All right, so we're going to kind of put these in. So I'm going to look up here and put my slot in. So let's come back. We'll bounce back and forth. So I'm going to put a new sketch. And we'll slide this down. I'm going to go up to create. I'm going to come down here to slot. I'm going to grab the first one. And I'm going to put a slot in. If I come back and look at my thing, it says my slot width. Okay, so that's going from center point to center point. Slot width is D2 divided by 2. So let's come back up here. Get out of that. Dimension from that point to that point. And that's going to be D2 divided by 2. Okay. Let's go back and look. Slot location A. And that's showing right here. So it's going from the left edge to the very far point, center point. And that is going to be, it should be 4/5. There we go. Times D3. So let's go back in and put that in. So dimension from here to that point. And we're going to type in 4/5 times D3. We'll hit enter. Then last one here is the overall height. And my height is going from the top back down that center point. And that is showing me D2 divided by 3. Let's go back to here. We'll grab our point. We'll grab our top edge. And we said, just to look, D2 divided by 3. So we're going to type that in. D2 divided by 3. And there's my slot. So let's go back here. And we need to have a slot radius is the plate depth. So my plate depth, well, that's D4. So all I'm going to do is type in D4 here. I'm going to enter. Go back here. My radius is D4. There we go. I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to select extrude. We'll pick that and we'll go back into our isometric view. And let's see how far we're going to extrude it. Slot extrusion, same as the plate depth. So our plate depth, if we look up here, it's D4. So we're going to type in D4 again. And our taper, it's going to be the same. We're just going to leave it as is. So we're just going to put a little space in there. Let's go back to our piece. And we need it to go back. So it's a negative. So we're actually going to type in a negative D4. Let's go back and see what we have left. We're going to have our little hole. So our hole location, C, is 1/4 the overall plate width. Well, our plate width is D3. So we're going to type in D3 divided by 4. Next one down, location is going to be 2/3 the overall plate height. So we're going to type in 2/3, 2 divided by 3, close parentheses, times, and it's my plate height. My plate height up here is D2. So I'm going to type that in, D2. We'll come down to the next one. Hole diameter. What's the slot radius? Let's find out slot radius. Well, that's D4. So we can type D4 times 2. The hole extrusion is going to be the same as the plate thickness. So the plate thickness is D4. We're going to type in D4. And again, the taper we're not concerned with. Okay, we're going to go back and fill all these numbers in a second. Let's go back here. We're going to put a new sketch on. We're actually going to create a circle. And let's flip here. Let's see where our first circle is. Hole location C. Well, hole location C is pointing from the left edge to the center circle. And that will be D3 divided by 4. So let's go from the center circle to this edge. D3 divided by 4. Okay. Let's go to the next one, location D. And location D is showing from the top down to the center. And location D says 2/3 times D2. So come back here from the top down to center. And that was, let's check again, 2/3 times D2. So we'll come back here. 2/3 times D2. We'll hit enter. We'll come back here. Our diameter, twice the slot. So that's D4. Okay, actually, let me write that D4 times 2. So let's go back here. D4 times 2. Let's finish this sketch. Let's go back here. It's the same as the plate thickness, so it's D4 again. So let's go extrude. Let's isometric. Let's pick our shape. We want to take that backwards. So we're going to be a negative. So we're going to be a negative D4. There we go. And there's our block, all done parametrically. So what we're going to do is we're now going to open up our modified again. And we're going to change parameters. And we're going to kind of see what we have in here, because we need to fill out the rest of our little block there. So let's open up our next sketch, our extrusion, our final sketch, and our final extrusion. So sketch 2 is where we did our slot. Okay, if we go back here, here's where we did the slot. We can kind of look at it. So that slot is now D6. So we're going to type in D6. Oops, sorry. Let me get up one. D6. The next one, 4/5 or a plate, that is D7. We're going to do D7. Next slot location is D8. Slot radius we have is D9. And then we come down to our extrusion. Our extrusion is D10. And our taper shows right down here. It's at D11. So we're on task, D11. We come down to our next sketch, and that's 3/4, or D3 divided by 4, D3 divided by 4, and that is D12. The next one, we got D13, our whole diameter, D14. We can see our extrusion right here is D15, and our taper is now D16. And we can go back here, and if we look at our little sheet, we can go back here and punch in all dimensions, because our sheet will have the dimensions. Let's move this over a little bit. We have 3 and 5. We'll go back and look here. So we have 3, and this one would be 5. All right. Our next one would be 0.25 and 0, and that should be our taper. So our next distance is 0.25, and there's our taper, should be at 0. Our next one down is 1.5 and 4. So we'll put those two in. 1.5. The one right below that is 4. We go back and look at our sheet. We got 1 and 0.25 would be our next ones. So we got 1 and 0.25. Our extrusion up minus 0.25 because we're cutting it out. So we're going to put that in there, minus 0.25. We come down here, we look at our circle, and we got 1.25, 2, and 0.5. So 1.2, 1.5, 2. And that last one was 0.5. So just type in 0.5. And our extrusion is going to be the same as the one above. So 0.25. And if you want, you can come back here and fill all this stuff in, the names of it. But that is how you do parametric equations. Hope you enjoyed the video.